Now showing on CTV. Don't blink. This is CTV. Don't blink.
In the headlines tonight,
Swahili. So they are going to help us to organize lessons first for the cabinet.
After government's decision to endorse Swahili as Uganda's second official language, cabinet ministers have been ordered to learn the language as soon as possible.
That forces of change are stronger when they work together.
Opposition National Unity Platform withdraws candidate in favor of Forum for Democratic Change's candidate in the forthcoming Soroti City East Member of Parliament by-election. Former KABONG District Chief Administrative Officer summoned by the Public Accounts Committee of Parliament over shillings 365 million expenditure. And in sports, ahead of the UBC Intercontinental heavyweight fight, Shafiq Chiwanuka and his opponent have been weighed in today. Hello, good evening and welcome to PM Edition right here on CTV. Today is Thursday, the 7th of July, 2022. I'm Agi Oase with Isaac Luchamuzi on Sign Language. In the top stories tonight, government has announced its partnership with Makerere University to be the main leading institution to be conducting Swahili lessons as part of the ways in the implementing of the use of Swahili language as the official language of the East African community. According to the First Deputy Prime Minister and the Minister for East African Affairs, Rebecca KADAGA, cabinet ministers have also been ordered to learn the language henceforth.
On Tuesday, Minister for ICT and National Guidance Dr. Chris Baryomusi announced the cabinet resolution of making Swahili the second official language, revealing that it will now be taught in schools following a resolution by East African Community member states.
That we took was to make the teaching of Swahili compulsory and examinable, and through that, that's how our children, our young people will be able now to understand and know Swahili.
This morning in her address to journalists, the First Deputy Prime Minister, who also doubles as the Minister for East African Affairs, Rebecca KADAGA, revealed that Makerere University will be conducting both online and physical lessons of the Swahili language to help Ugandans adapt.
You know, Makerere University, as I said, have got what they call an incubation center. They have people with PhDs in Swahili, Ugandans who are there, trained in Swahili. So they are going to help us to organize lessons first for the cabinet.
According to Minister KADAGA, cabinet ministers are on top of the priority list of learners, revealing that they will have to undertake lessons every Monday in the cabinet sittings.
From 9 to 10, we shall take lessons in Swahili, and then from 10, we conduct our work in the usual way until we are very proficient.
KADAGA also revealed that they have ordered Uganda Airlines to include Swahili language among the languages which they use to greet the people.
It means greeting in English and sometimes in Uganda, but now they'll be required to greet in English and Swahili so that even the people of East Africa know that the Ugandans have now moved from English to other languages.
Meanwhile, the Minister for East African Affairs has also emphasized the need to motivate the people on the use of Swahili language.
To change our attitude, because, knowing an additional language is an advantage. Now, I believe that the United Nations, they will add, in addition to French and English, they will add Swahili as an essential language to be employed in the United Nations.
According to government, there is a strong campaign aimed at popularizing the use of Swahili as an official language on top of English. It will now have to be the government officials to take the lead in implementing the directive. Story by Shamim Natewa, CTV PM Edition.
The Ministry of Education and Sports has urged Ugandans to change their attitude towards learning Swahili following a decision by the cabinet to make it compulsory in schools. According to the Ministry of Education, they have all it takes to teach Swahili in all schools. We have the details.
Sisi ndakuisatengeneza masomo yote kwa seribai na nini yote sisi ndakuisatia.
Cabinet at the beginning of this week announced the compulsory teaching of Swahili in all schools across the country. The directive follows an agreement by heads of state of the East African Community member states to adapt the language.
We are looking at Swahili as the second official language, which means that the attention and the time allocation to it is different from the other languages. So it goes almost next to English.
Since the announcement, there have been fears over the government's preparedness to implement the teaching of Swahili in schools. However, officials from the Ministry of Education and Sports and the National Curriculum Development Center said there is no need to worry.
We have been having it, and I'm happy. Children who are doing it, senior 1 and 2, some of you have been going to the field. They enjoy it and they have been learning it as a language.
In the revised secondary curriculum, senior 1 and senior 2 students in secondary schools and primary 4 to primary 7 pupils have been learning the language. The ministry's spokesperson, Dr. Dennis Mjimba, says it's too early to say that the language is compulsory across all levels.
Like adaptation to special needs education, the rigorous provision of other non-textbook materials, but also looking at the teachers and trying to help them to prepare that they are teaching aids in Kiswahili and making sure that they align them with the textbook, because the textbook alone may not be enough, so that we can make sure that Kiswahili takes up in the rigor that we want.
We have to make sure that we have a good baseline and all schools are at par. You do not want to disadvantage some schools or some sub-regions if they do not have, if they've not been teaching Kiswahili, and then you begin saying all candidates have to sit for UNEB Kiswahili next year. So we cannot put a finger to that until all the building blocks are in place.
700 Swahili teachers were recruited last year to teach Kiswahili in government schools. An estimated 500 trainers have been equipped to facilitate other teachers in learning the language. According to the Ministry of Education, the public must change the attitude towards Swahili ahead of the enrollment.
We need to do some refresher programs for teachers to show them what we have adjusted, especially in the revised Kiswahili curriculum.
Kiswahili is a language, and using our spiral curriculum and the competence-based curriculum that we are using, where we emphasize language competences, knowledge competences, values, skills, communication, it's going to be very easy because the teachers are already trained in this kind of approach.
Government says schools have been receiving scholastic materials to facilitate learning. More books, especially for Swahili, will be sent to schools. Ramson Muhire, CTV PM Edition.
Moving on, the former Chief Administrative Officer of Kabong District, Joel Musisi, has been summoned by the Parliamentary Public Accounts Committee on Local Government to appear next week after being implicated in the 2021 Auditor General's report. According to the report, Musisi, who is the accounting officer, paid out 365 million shillings to a construction company for work done that was not done.
This morning, the Chief Administrative Officer of Kabong District, Fred Okello, appeared before the Public Accounts Committee of Parliament on Local Government to answer the queries raised in the Auditor General's report.
There was conspiracy to defraud government, or there was gross negligence, and these are areas we need to very critically analyze.
According to the report, Jackson Construction Company, which had been contracted to construct the Kabong Council chambers in April of 2021 and was expected to complete the project by June 28th, did not do any work even when they were given contract extensions.
Found out that the contract was supposed to start on 9th April 2021 and end on 28th June 2021. However, by 28th June 2021, the contractor had not done the work.
Now the Public Accounts Committee of Parliament is faulting the former Chief Administrative Officer of Kabong, Joel Musisi, for not following the PPDA contract agreement, which says that it's legal to release 100% payment to any contractor. According to the current COW, James Fred Okello, talks with the contractor to start work did not yield any results.
What I did was to invite the contractor to a site meeting, and which he did not appear, and he has not appeared up to now. The contractor is very elusive. You communicate, he sends, on the day the meeting is supposed to be, he sends a letter of regret. He is unable to attend. We are going to receive. You communicate on phone, he promises that it doesn't come up to now.
Members of Parliament sitting on the committee expressed their dismay on the matter, revealing that this was a case of a pure fraud.
I think we need to move an extra mile and go to URSB to find out what the directors of this company. Is it really a genuine company?
Kabong should be held responsible for the action that was taken to pay the money to the contractor before work was done. And Mr. Chairman, it is very, very shaming. It will be very shaming to us as a committee if nothing is done to the implementers of this wrong action.
Speaking to the chairperson of the committee, Martin Ojera Mapenduzi, the committee is going to carry out more investigation in the matter, and that they will also intend to question the owners of the company.
We have issued directive as a committee that on Tuesday next week, that particular cow needs to appear. We also need the directors of the contractors, because we need to establish the people behind this company. Why are they so indisciplined and they don't respect the district, and how they ended up getting money 100%. You cannot collect 360 million from the district and you don't want to even appear to them.
The committee is now waiting to hear from the former Chief Administrative Officer of Kabong, Joel Musisi, on the matter. Musisi is expected to appear before the committee on Tuesday to respond to the queries. Sarah Nakandi for CTV, PM Edition.
Thank you, Sarah Nakandi, for that report. Operations by Kampala Capital City Authority, police and other agencies have continued carrying out operations to weed out border who are unfit to carry out business in Kampala City. This follows the expiry of July 1st deadline for border operators to acquire licenses or permits from the Uganda Driving Standards Agency. We have that report.
In January, the Ministry of Works and Transport introduced a 6-month program to streamline the border industry. The program involved the registration of border riders, making them undergo mental tests, giving them the training supposed to acquire temporary riding permits as they wait for the permanent ones. Saturday last week at Clock Tower Kampala, hundreds of motorcycles were impounded in what CCA and police say is an operation to restore sanity on city roads. Speaking to journalists, Rubaga Division Resident City Commissioner Anderson Burora said all border operators who do not have the necessary requirements would not be allowed on city roads. He represented the State Minister for Kampala Affairs, Fred Chofatogabye Kabuye.
Since the 6 months ultimatum elapsed on 1st July 2022, we are here to inform the public that enforcement of compliance of the above reasoning of the Ministry of Works and Transport and the Ministry for Kampala will start henceforth. And this is to remind all riders that these enforcements will affect everyone who has not complied with the above obligations. What we want to enforce is that whoever rides someone is qualified and is up to the expectations of the public to comply with the obligations of the law.
According to Burora, they intend to gazette a specified number of border stages in the city, and this can only happen if all border riders are resisted.
Stages that are on hospitals for some reasons, stages that are on school gates, stages that are at petrol stations, at banks, at transformers, at police stations. All of those stages are going to be removed because of several security reasons that do not warrant them to be there.
He said strict requirements would be introduced for those who want to join the industry as riders. The 2021 police annual report indicated that motorcycles killed 1,018 people, including riders and passengers, died in the road accidents. This means that at least 5 people were killed by borders every day in 2021. Flavian Inkuze for CTV PM Edition.
Thank you for staying with us. CTV PM Edition takes a short break, but we'll be right back with more stories. Don't go away. Welcome back, everyone. You are still watching CTV PM Edition with me, Agi Oase, and Isaac Luchamzi on sign language. Moving on, the leadership of National Unity Platform, the biggest opposition party in Uganda, has asked other opposition groups to unite if they are to defeat the ruling National Resistance Movement in elective politics. NUP leaders were at the party headquarters where they unveiled candidates for the forthcoming by-elections in Kasese and Palisa districts.
Speaking to journalists at the party headquarters in Kamocha, Kampala, NUP leaders urged opposition politicians to support unity. The party's deputy president, Eastern Uganda John Baptist Nambeshe, says they withdrew their candidate in Soroti City East, Arnold Emadin, in favor of Forum for Democratic Change's Moses Atan. Voting in Soroti East takes place on July 28th. Nambeshe, who is the party's whip in parliament, says it's now upon the opposition parties to support NUP candidates where they have no candidates. The NUP party has fronted Jackson Baju for Busongora South by-election scheduled for August 18. Joseph Opolot Okoboy is NUP's candidate for Gogonyo County by-election that will take place on August 11th.
It's not that NUP lacked a flag bearer. We have a potential candidate who could have taken on the two horses. By the way, it has now been reduced to a two-horses race in Soroti City. The rest are donkeys. And we expect that now that we have really demonstrated both in word and deed to our fellow colleagues in opposition that forces of change are stronger when they work together. That alliance should also be emulated in a give and take when we come to Kasese, when we come to Kogonyo.
Although other opposition parties as well as the ruling NRM party are in process of picking candidates who will contest for East African Legislative Assembly seats, NUP is yet to endorse candidates.
Our initial stand was that there should be fairness in selecting candidates who go to IALA, because currently the system is not fair. All the 9 representatives are pretty much selected by NRM. So we rejected it because we know it is illegal. The treaty provides for all shades of opinion to be represented. At least the forces of change have an ability to select their own candidates, and not for NRM to be the one selecting candidates, all the 9 of those representatives. So when the time is due, after the National Executive Committee of the party has taken a formal decision, we shall announce it and let the nation know about it.
The candidates who have been endorsed are confident to be successful.
I won the election even when I was an independent, though I was cheated by 79 votes. That support alone shows that now that I have a party, and my party president having won Kasese district, specifically Busongora South and the mountain area, chances are more highly that we are going to win this election.
The High Court nullified the victory of NRM's Gideon Thembo Mujongo in Busongora County South Kasese district over election malpractices including voter bribery and ballot stuffing. The Court of Appeal also nullified the election in Soroti City East when the Electoral Commission transferred 2 parishes of Opiai and Alouette from Soroti East to Soroti West after nomination of candidates. Adams Mayambala, CTV, PM Edition.
Following increasing number of mushrooming makeshift drug shops in Busoga sub-region, the National Drug Authority has carried out an operation to weed them out. According to the National Drug Authority, their mandate is to oversee the entire supply chain and unlicensed drug outlets. We have that report.
National Drug Authority officials say the problem is becoming bigger since some drug dealers have started hawking them. They say hawking drugs is not only illegal but creates leakage in drug supply chain and exposes the public to impure drugs. According to them, since hawkers are mobile, they expose drugs to unfavorable temperatures, and without a permanent address, it is also difficult to trace and take regulatory action in case they have issues with hawked drugs. National Drug Authority says hawkers are conduits of substandard, fake, counterfeited and expired drugs, which can also result into various drug-related problems and life-threatening events. Hawkers, according to National Drug Authority, misinform the public through unethical advertising and misleading promotion of medicines, which leads to poor decision-making and cheating innocent Uganda at the expense of their health. Hawked drugs, according to National Drug Authority, increase disease resistance both in human and animals, as they are associated with either ineffective drugs or poor dosages, since hawkers are not qualified to prescribe or dispense medicine. National Drug Authority says regulated drug outlets help them to trace it from where it entered the market or where it was sold from.
In a regional roundup tonight, the Democratic Republic of Congo and Rwanda have agreed to a de-escalation process following weeks of rising tensions over rebel fighting in eastern DRC, while Benin has expressed concerns over insecurity as terrorism increases. The Democratic Republic of Congo and Rwanda have agreed to a de-escalation process following weeks of rising tensions over rebel fighting in eastern DRC. Thereafter, mediated talks. Violence has flared between the Congolese army and the M23 rebels and is ongoing. The DRC has repeatedly accused Rwanda of backing the M23, a charge the small Central African country always denied. Tshisekedi's office said a roadmap had been established towards normalizing diplomatic ties, including through ending hostilities involving the M23 militia in eastern DRC. The announcements came after day-long talks, which the Rwandan state broadcaster reported had concluded with an agreed-upon roadmap to de-escalate hostilities. But the Rwanda Broadcasting Agency stressed that it was agreed the issue of M23 be dealt with domestically within the framework of the Nairobi process. A mostly Congolese Tutsi rebel group, the M23 or March 23 movement, first leapt to prominence when it briefly captured the eastern Congolese city of Goma in 2012 before it was driven out in a joint UN-Congolese offensive. Fierce fighting has seen the rebels make significant advances in eastern Congo. Last month, M23 fighters captured the strategic town of Bunagana on the Congolese-Ugandan border, for example. This involves setting up a joint DRC-Rwanda committee, which is due to hold its first meeting in Luanda on July 12th, as well as a roadmap for normalizing relations. The M23 must cease hostilities under the roadmap, according to the Congolese presidency, and the exploitation of natural resources in the region must be done in strict respect of the sovereignty of states. In our international news, British Prime Minister Boris Johnson resigns under heavy pressure from lawmakers, while a UN report warns that the world is moving backwards on eliminating hunger and malnutrition. Let's take a look. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson has finally resigned under heavy pressure from lawmakers in his own party. His resignation caps a remarkable political career filled with highs, lows, and almost too many scandals to count. He said he will stay in office until the Conservatives choose a new party leader who will then take over as Prime Minister.
It is clearly now the will of the Parliamentary Conservative Party that there should be a new leader of that party and therefore a new Prime Minister. And I've agreed with Sir Graham Brady, the chairman of our backbench MPs, that the process of choosing that new leader should begin now. And the timetable will be announced next week. And I've today appointed a cabinet to serve, as I will, until a new leader is in place.
Of course, it is painful to not be able to see through so many ideas and projects, Johnson said in front of the door of number 10 Downing Street in London, as loud crowds could be heard nearby. But as we have seen at Westminster, the herd instinct is powerful, and when the herd moves, it moves. This comes after dozens of officials, aides and members of his cabinet quit his government, saying they could no longer serve under his leadership. Several former cabinet ministers told him he should resign. An announcement will come next week about the timetable for choosing the new Prime Minister, Johnson said. The number of people affected by hunger globally rose to as many as 828 million in 2021, an increase of about 46 million since 2020 and 150 million since the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic, according to a new United Nations report that provides fresh evidence that the world is moving farther away from its goal of ending hunger, food insecurity, and malnutrition in all its forms by 2030. The 2022 edition of the State of Food Security and Nutrition in the World report presents updates on food security and nutrition situation around the world, including the latest estimates of the cost and affordability of a health diet. It also examines ways governments can repurpose their current support to agriculture to help make healthy and nutritious food cheaper, mindful of the limited public resources available in many parts of the world. The report is a joint publication by the Food and Agriculture Organization, the International Fund for Agriculture Development, the UN's Children Fund, the UN World Food Programme, and the World Health Organization. PM Edition takes a short break, but we'll be right back with news from the world of sports. Do stay with us.